This morning, we're now going to take a look at some of the group reports that are available in Ames Web Plus so that you have a better idea of how your students are performing. Right now, I am in a Sandbox account so that all the students you're seeing here are fake students, but you can follow along within your own account and filter and see how your students are performing based on the things that I show you this morning. So pretty much default when you come into Ames Web Plus is going to be the benchmark comparison screen. So you'll notice it's going to have this benchmark tab selected and benchmark comparison, which is right where you want to be. The thing that you'll have to select for yourself is probably not your school, but maybe your grade level or your classroom. In this case, I have grade 2 selected at the reports level for elementary. And then the other thing that you'll need to select is which battery you want to look at. Right now I have reading selected. So once you have those things selected, you can hit view refresh and you'll see all the scores and things from your students. If you have any students who are left that still need to assess, then you will see their tickets under assess. But as I scroll down, you're going to start seeing students who have scores in the system. So you'll notice that there is this bar at the top which kind of gives you a sense of where your students are performing based on the percentile ranking at the national level, because that's what we have it set to. Down here it gives you a little bit more information about what those colors mean. The legend is here. So in the orange is the 1st to 10th percentile, the yellow is 11th to 25th, green is 26th to 74th, kind of this bright green is 75th to 89th, and then blue is 90th to 99th percentile. So this first chunk here is how students have performed on the composite. So with all the scores combined, how they were doing. You'll notice that some of your students may have this little alert button next to them. That just means that they performed very poorly and below the 25th percentile and don't currently have a progress monitoring tool assigned to them. As we scroll over, like I said, you're going to see their overall reading composite here, but then you're going to start to see their individual information. So although this is giving you a sense of where they are for the composite, it also tells you the specific percentile ranking each of these students has. So these guys are within that 1st percentile for the composite. These ones are in the 3rd percentile, 6th, 10th, 13th, etc. But this breaks down their scores based on the individual subtests that they took. So if we're looking at Ava Alexander, you can see that in vocabulary, she was at the first percentile. This 6%, this is at the account level. So across other students in this account, she's at the 6th percentile, but nationally she's at the 1st. Not everyone will have this little garbage next to the scores, but for school managers, they can delete scores and retest students if needed. For reading comprehension, she was at the 2nd percentile. Didn't give a Lexile for this one, but in many of your screens, you'll see a Lexile that was given. And then on oral reading fluency, she was also at that 1st percentile. You'll notice that next to oral reading fluency, there is this little plus sign next to goal. This is because this measure can be used for progress monitoring. So if we wanted to, we could hit plus and set up a goal and a progress monitoring schedule for Ava using this measure. Something else that you can do if it's helpful for you is you can click on the individual bar to look at some information about the measure, what date that was taken, which form was used, and then again, it'll show you that national percentile. You can also then go directly to her individual benchmark if that's what you want to do. Something else that might be useful for you is to click this little paper next to the student. So for Ava Alexander in grade 2 for reading, then we could go directly to her individual monitoring, her skills analysis, or score snapshot. It takes you into those student level assessment or reports if that's what you want to take a look at. One other thing that you'll sometimes see appear on here, and I'm not sure I'm seeing it here in this example account, sometimes you'll see a little orange exclamation point next to a score. that typically is saying that you need to interpret that with caution. Like there is such a disparity between how the student did on one measure versus another that it's not making sense for the system, and they're saying that maybe that student guessed and you might want to re-give that measure. So I don't have any examples of that here, but you may be seeing that within your own accounts. Another way of looking at this benchmark comparison is to look at the tier view. So if we look at the comparison here, you'll see we have national, so we're looking at the student versus the national percentile. But if we go down to the bottom, we can also look at something called tiers. So I'm going to click that and view refresh. And that is just another view for looking at how our students are performing, and maybe a little bit more familiar because really that red is representing a high-risk student, the yellow is representing a some-risk student, and the green is representing a low-risk student. In this case, this target, the count is set at the 30th percentile. High-risk students have a less than 50% probability of meeting the 30th percentile for their grade level in spring. Low risk or some risk students have between 50 and 79th probability of meeting the 30th percentile by spring for their grade level. And then our low risk students have an 80% or greater probability of meeting that 30th percentile benchmark by the end of the school year. So that's kind of what that means. Like, what is the likelihood of them meeting a specific benchmark by the end of the year? And these students are very unlikely to meet that benchmark, so that's why they're considered our highest risk students. If you want to look at some more group reports, you can click this group reports here at the top. And then you have to do some filtering to find the type of report that you want to look at. So you can see there's various reports available. Some of these you won't see. This is there's a lot of things in here because this is a Sandbox account. But one thing that I'll draw your attention to is the scores and skills plan. So I will click that, make sure I'm on my reports for elementary and second grade and still within reading, and then I'm going to hit view refresh. So you'll notice in this report, it's giving a holistic view of student performance, in this case in reading, across all those individual measures, so oral reading fluency, reading comprehension, and vocabulary, as well as within the composite score. So here, for oral reading fluency, you can see the percent of students that fell into well below average, average, above average, and well above average. And remember that these colors aligned to that legend that we looked at on the previous screen. So it kind of gives you this nice picture of like what areas are our students struggling in most. And I would say it looks like vocabulary and reading comprehension are a struggle. They have the highest number of students, highest percentage of students in that low category. And then over here for total reading composite, you can see the number of students who fall into low risk, some risk, and high risk. So that's right there. As you scroll down, it kind of has some explanation around these details as well for you. I just want to highlight what this looks like in math so that you can see that as well. So it's a similar picture in math. It's going to show you concepts and applications, mental computation fluency, number comparison fluency, number sense fluency, and then the total math composite, all depending on what tests we give our students. The last thing that I want to show you within the group reports is the math skills analysis. Unfortunately, we don't have this for reading because it's a really cool report, but let's take a look. And I'm going to click down and show you mental computation fluency. So within here, it is showing me how my students did on two-digit addition, two-digit subtraction, addition and subtractions here. Down here is the legend for what you're seeing. It'll show you the percent that was attempted and the percent that was actually correct among two-digit addition for your students. and then it'll show you the national average and the national average range, so whether or not your students were in that average. What's interesting is you can expand each of these skills. So if I want to learn more about two-digit addition for my students, I can click the expand. And now I'm able to see by student, knowing who's high risk, some risk, and low risk, how they performed on each test item. So for Ava Alexander, which we looked at before, she attempted 100% of these two-digit addition questions, but didn't get any of them correct. And then if I want to know more about the items that she didn't get correct, I can hover over and click this little I button, and it's going to show me what the question was. So it gives me a ton of information about the test items within two-digit addition. I can collapse this, and then I can look at the same thing for three-digit addition, subtraction. Then I can close this mental computation fluency, and I can look at number comparison fluency and do the same thing. So I'll expand this one now. I'll look at Ava Alexander. Again, she didn't get any correct, but did a try for 100% of the items in two and three-digit whole number comparisons. And then I'll look at what these items were that she unfortunately wasn't able to get correct. So that is very helpful when you're thinking about trying to understand how students performed and why.